What's that, Tammy? Blue Rose, yes. This refers to Jay's Analysis, the only site to get the David Lynch Gordon Cole approval. He's decoded the entire thing correctly. It's a must read, Tammy. One more thing. Damn fine cup of Joe. Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. I'm going to decode for you the mysterious season 3 of Twin Peaks. Everybody's having a hard time with this. I think I have the key, and most of the people who've read what I've done tend to agree. So a lot of great feedback on my analysis. Lucy Moran even liked my analysis. So let's take a look and see if we can make sense of this very mysterious season 3, as well as the uber mysterious episode 8. Analysis, be sure to go to Jay's Analysis and check out right here. You'll see a link to signed copies of my book. I've got about 90 5-star reviews now. It's been out for about 5 months. So a lot of great feedback, 95% positive reviews. If you like this analysis and you want to read more like it, go to my website, jaysanalysis.com. You can order signed copies right here. So let's get into Twin Peaks Season 3. Now, the return is mystifying everyone. Everyone seems to be stuck in the waiting room to find out exactly what's going on. And I'm here as your little demon midget man to help guide you. Of course, I'm going to guide you into the truth, not into the black lodge of mystery and deception. Now, we know that the series is hearkening back to Fire Walk with Me. And this mystified a lot of people because Fire Walk with Me was not that well received when it premiered at Cannes Film Festival a long time ago, 91 or 2. But I did do an analysis of that, and you can go check that out as well. I think that would be a good background before we get into the actual season 8. So go read that first if you haven't looked at that. Although some of that will be in this analysis. But remember, keep in mind, in Lynch films, we have a combination of apocalypticism, biblical demonology, shamanic traditions, various other mythologies, Tibetan Buddhism, Masonic philosophy, as well as Crowleyanism and Theosophy. And in terms of the techniques of the film, there's the influence of surrealism, film noir, absurdism. Lynch has a documentary where he talks about Man Ray and Cocteau and various surrealists and absurdists that he also derives a lot of influence from. So that's going to be important. The in-between, let's understand that it's 25 years later. Everybody knows this, but I want to point out that Frost, in his book, which is a really good book, I have the Mark Frost book here, which I've been reading, and basically confirms everything that I wrote. If you read my original Twin Peaks analysis 2 years ago, you know that I told you basically everything that's in the Mark Frost book that came out a few months ago. So Frost says that yes, it's based on Yeats, Golden Dawn, Alice Bailey, the Theosophic tradition, basically. And so we don't know yet exactly what the clues are that the giant gave to Cooper. The new clues this go round, 4:30, Richard and Linda, 2 birds, 1 stone. That will probably be cleared up in the remaining half of the series, but we're only 8 episodes in. So I'm not going to rehearse all of the details of what all we've seen in these first 8 episodes. That would be impossible. I'm assuming you're familiar with it if you're reading this because you already like Twin Peaks. So we know that there was the black box, and the couple that was in the watching the box got frisky, and this seemed to be connected to the opening of another portal. So here we have the direct, I think, reference to sex magic and the idea of opening portals through the sexual act, which is the foundation of Crowleyan sex magic, as this is kind of a means by which you can be possessed, so that idea goes. But here they are in some way sacrificed. So we don't know yet if the billionaire who was owning this high rise and filming this portal, if he seemed to maybe want them to come up there and get frisky. so that they could be offered to the Baphomet demon entity that we saw. We don't know yet. But regardless, I titled the section Twin Bangs because not only is it about Twin Peaks, it's also about a new Big Bang. And this comes from a section of my book, pages 120 to 121, where really the process of creation originally, which in this narrative we'll say it was Big Bang. I don't believe in that, but we'll say it was the Big Bang. And then here we have the new Big Bang, which is the Magi of the scientific priest class initiating a new Big Bang. And this, in the book and in my analysis, you'll know, especially from the character of Jack Parsons, one of the founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the JPL Lab, and his philosophy, he was a Crowleyan. His esoteric philosophy of rockets, sex and rockets, is intimately tied into the chemical reaction process and viewing all of this in an alchemical sense. And of course, Michael Hoppin references this in Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare on page 49. But you'll notice in the mysterious episode 8, we saw the reference to White Sands. And Hoffman noted that this White Sands Trinity site was a kind of inversion in an alchemical sense of the creation and destruction of primordial matter, the killing of the divine king, and the bringing of prima materia to prima terra. That is the philosophical process of the Philosopher's Stone to transmutate base matter into higher spiritual realities. This is mentioned in Frost's book when it discusses the lengthy section with the character of Parsons. So I know that I was right about all of that. That's 100% confirmed now. And I talk about this in the context in my book of a kind of sexual view of reality. That's how all the ancient pagan religions and Masonry and Crowley viewed reality, was in this sexual sense. So I think I'm right to discuss the notion of a new Big Bang, Twin Peaks, that is two boobies, twin bangs, right? All the sexual innuendos here. This is in the context of a new Stargate. So the universe is mirrored in the atom, according to the Platonic and Leibnizian philosophy, and therefore the destruction of it signifies the destruction of that universe, and then the initiation of a new aeon. And a lot of these esoteric philosophers, they have the discussion of speaking a new word for the new aeon. And so previously, we were supposedly in this philosophy, the Yuga, or the era, the aeon of a different god, of Horus or something like that, depending on which esotericist one reads. But let's rewind and remember that it was actually Wyndham Earle in season 2 who told us this. Wyndham Earle said, "The access to the secret place where the cultivation of evil proceeds in exponential fashion, the furtherance of evil's resulting power. This is the goal of the deep state in trying to tap into these forces." Now, I've said this in numerous interviews that I've done now on the new Twin Peaks and the old Twin Peaks, and everything that I was telling you is correct. And this was actually in Frost's book as well, page 259, where it gets into the possibility of opening portals and gates through these kinds of explosions, and they are explicitly connected to sex magic in Frost's book. So I was right. Now, Om, Lam, Bob, let's talk about the demonic entities of this narrative, this world. Now, the character Parsons, the famous rocket scientist, he also wrote a book that he believes he discovered through spiritual inspiration or quote revelation, which he called Liber 49, and this is part of in his mind, an addendum to Crowley's Book of the Law. Now, in Parsons' confused ramblings, what you have is a discussion of the underlying philosophy that he says relates to fire, Mars, to a new child, to the era of homosexuality, infantilism, and schizophrenia. So this characterizes the new aeon he's talking about in this view, and so this is why they read it in an apocalyptic sense. And in Frost's book, there's even mention of the Bohemian Grove and the owls at Bohemian Grove, and that's actually who the Owlians are. The owls are not what they seem, right? And so I noted that the pale horse imagery that keeps coming up, and that was part of the woodsman hobo demons in episode 8 when they were talking about the last days, the pale horse and drinking from that fountain. This is from the Apocalypse of John, or the Book of Revelation 6:8. where I look, I behold a pale horse. Its rider was Death. Hades came behind him. It was given power over the fourth of the earth to kill with famine and plague and with wild beasts of the earth. And so I think what we're looking at here is this poltergeisty influenced notion of the Baphomet character spitting out its ectoplasm. Again, note the poltergeist influence, which you can read more about in my analysis. And this births Bob, right? This is a kind of a moonchild type ritual taking place on the astral plane that births the demonic entity Bob. Bob then comes forth as an egg, and there, of course, are a bunch of eggs in here. Rotten eggs of Bob and Baphomet. And then when we get to the character of Lamb, this is the Crowleyan idea that he was contacting a spiritual entity, Aiwass, or later Lamb. That Lamb has the characteristics of an alien, right? The gray aliens. Now, that's interesting because when we read the follower of Crowley, who later kind of did his own thing, Kenneth Grant, in Beyond the Mob Zone, Kenneth Grant talks about moons and the moons of Lamb, the eggs and the eggs of Lamb. And so that is definitely the context that we're talking about here. And Lamb is a dwarf deity. So this is why the arm, or Bob's little demon midget man from another place manifestation, it's a dwarf deity because that's who is the hidden god. And of course, David Lynch references the hidden god in Club Silencio in Mulholland Drive. So in the formula of Kenneth Grant, he talks about anyone who successfully uses the formula of the egg of Lamb can travel to these different astral planes and dimensions. So that, I think, is a key to understanding this. And it also ties in directly to surrealism. And Lynch is a big fan, as I said, of surrealism. And with this magical formula of Lamb that is supposed to be comparable to the Eastern notion of the Om, right? Lamb is the dream state, the awake state, and the deep sleep state. So those are the three possible states of man. So there's your dwarf god, all straight out of the Mob Zone. And the Mob Zone in that section actually talks about the homunculus of the Jack Parsons type. So there we go. That is all confirmed now. The little frog, the frog roach, grasshopper demon. I think this also has reference to the apocalypse. When he opened up the abyss, smoke rose from out from it. A giant furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by smoke of the abyss. Locusts came down. Right. So I think that we're talking about here the abyss, and definitely the demon Baphomet character that's vomiting forth. There it is. This is the abyss, right? This is the giant black void of the abyss of Ein Sof, or whatever, Dayat. And again, I wanted to point out too the poltergeist influences. And it's interesting because poltergeist definitely has a Golden Dawn beast reference as well, which would be William Crookes, right, who would go on to create the Crookes tube, the cathode ray tube. This would be instrumental in the development of the television, and he was a member of the Golden Dawn, as was Bowie for some period. Now here you see Bowie sketching out the pathways of the Sephiroth, which is interesting because Bowie, as Agent Jeffries, will actually teleport across these worlds in Fire Walk with Me. That's why you see the static screen and the static imagery and the electrical wires connected to the spiritual entities that exist on another frequency or wavelength, right? See the electricity sort of zapping, right, imagery of the chevrons at the base of the waiting room of the Black Lodge. And here we see, as I said, Agent Jeffries zapping into the Philadelphia field office. Philadelphia, of course, signifies the Philadelphia experiment as well, which was rumored to be the naval experiments into teleportation. Now, that above the convenience store is what Bowie said was the location for the Black Lodge and where they had their meetings. So here's, of course, Bob and the Man from Another Place and these various spirit characters back here, two of which appear to be woodsmen or hobo demons. Now, We saw them in episode 1 of season 3. So we know we're making the right connection between the hobo demons, woodsman here, and the woodsman of the Black Lodge. And so, interestingly, a picture of Crowley surfaced as well in this context when he was climbing K2 in 1902. And yes, I know that doesn't look like the dude. I was skeptical at first, but that actually is Crowley with burnt hobo demon face. So there's your mountain man of the devil here. And that is the explanation of the convenience store. So here is the convenience store. And of course, remember, this spiritual presence in the jail in episode 1 is the same guy too, the same hobo demon, I'm calling them. And it's there that I think we can also connect this to, nobody else has made this connection either, that I'm going to add in my next analysis in part 2, is serial killers. Right, we have reference to the murder of Ruth Davenport is very Black Dahlia-esque, and of course the prevailing theory of characters like Steve Hodel is that George Hodel, his father, who was best friends with John Huston, the director, and Man Ray, that they were involved in the Black Dahlia case. And David Lynch talks in interviews about being very familiar with the works of Man Ray as a surrealist. So I think that there's probably influence of the Black Dahlia case in the character of Ruth Davenport. And there's also other serial killer references too. The Black Dog that's mentioned in Fire Walk with Me, I think probably has reference to David Berkowitz and his dog talking to him and telling him who to murder, supposedly. And as well as the idea of a bigger cult that runs some of these serial killers, as we discussed in my analysis of Dave McGowan's Program to Kill. Now, the idea of the universal musical tape, I titled this section because of the Neoplatonic idea of the musica universalis, and this is the old Pythagorean notion that the universe is actually singing at different tones, musical notes. And this goes back, again, all the way to Pythagoras, and then into the Renaissance Neoplatonists, and the character of Robert Flood, who actually designed this famous Temple of Music image to show this principle. So that's what we were looking at when the giant kind of created or imagined the character of Laura to be a countervailing force to Bob. And so you'll notice that just like the Space Guild vagina-mouthed aliens in David Lynch's Dune, they imagine or speak a word and they fold space to travel between worlds, in the same way the giant kind of does the same thing, and that he imagines the soul of Laura to be this countervailing force against the spirit of Bob. And then Laura's spirit is sung into existence and played onto a 2D film reel. Now, that's confusing perhaps, but if you watch Mulholland Drive, that's explained in the Club Silencio scenes, that the 2D film reel is in a way the kind of reality that we experienced as played before our senses. Again, that's a very surrealist concept. If you like this analysis, check out my book, Esoteric Hollywood, at jaysanalysis.com, or subscribe to my talks and lectures. Thanks for watching, and please share and like, follow my work, and click the little stupid bell for notifications.